The Plantage is a neighborhood east of the city center of Amsterdam, famous for its refreshingly green scenery, botanical gardens, zoo, and traces of Jewish history. One can find many national monuments in the Plantage, some of which highlight the Jewish history of the neighborhood. In this video essay, we are talking about the representation of the Jewish history of the Plantage, by the monuments and signs that still remain there today. The concept of Jewish history, or of history in general, falls into the abstract category of representation. You cannot touch it. But here in the Plantage, we can find attempts to make this history touchable. What are these attempts? Are they sufficient? And are they actually working? We interviewed Elisa. She's an expert in the Jewish history of the Plantage, and she works for the organization Jewish Cultural Quarter. She is stationed at the Holocaust Museum in the Plantage. We asked her what she thought of the way the Jewish history in the Plantage is represented by the several monuments in the area.
Do you have any opinion about the way that the Jewish history of this neighborhood is represented right now by these monuments? Because this building is also a monument.
Yes, I'm quite happy with the representation, because this was a very strong Jewish neighborhood in the turn of the century, like the 1900s.
Yes.
It became that when the industrialization came up, and the first Jews were climbing the social ladder.
Yeah.
So, driven from there, from the poverty, and getting the ability to work in trades like the diamond factories, in which the Jews played an enormous part. And due to the philanthropist Mr. Wertheim, who built numbers, who was responsible for, that the Jews were getting it a bit better as well. The park was built, this area was built, and a lot of Jews came into this area because they were living themselves in the Transvaalbuurt.
Yes.
And Amsterdam East, which is very close nearby.
Yeah,
of course, only a small group fortunate Jews could live in this area.
Yeah.
But they made a lot of use of the zoo on Artis. They came there on Shabbat, Saturday.
Yeah, Shabbat, yeah.
And they were able to go there because the people there knew they would come back on Sunday to pay, as it was not allowed to work and spend the money. So, of course, this whole quarter, as well as the other quarters where the Jewish Historical Museum is, was totally abandoned and didn't play any part in the history of Amsterdam until the 80s.
Yeah.
For example, I can remember walking with my father when I was a child, and I was born in 1958. So in the beginning of the 60s, I was walking with my father where now the Jewish Historical Museum is, and I remember it being boarded up. There was nothing. The streets were in ruins.
Wow.
So when the museum opened in 87, that was an enormous boost for the area.
Yeah.
Also, when the community decided to tear down the terrible mausoleum, which was standing in the Jodenbreestraat, and instead there it became also more cultural, so that whole area was starting to bloom. And then it made sense that you had here this wonderful Wertheim Park and the beautiful monument of Jan Wolkers.
Yes.
Yeah?
So you feel that it's proper that these monuments were placed in this specific area?
Yes, very proper. With the monument inside the Dutch theatre with all the family names, these are all marking points of an area, of course, which not only represents the Jewish life, but also their way of life, which was, for the most people, actually at that time, not even very Jewish, because they already escaped the ghettoism feeling, and they were developing themselves.
This is Elisa's expert opinion. However, this does of course not necessarily mean that every inhabitant or tourist at the Plantage will get the full picture and will sense the full representation. Then the question remains, can a complicated concept as the Jewish history of the Plantage ever be fully represented for everyone to fully comprehend the Jewish history, knowing the limitations of representation?